Put my name instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. Rename.
Gina, it looks like they have you on currently as the host. Okay, you started recording. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. You did it, Tina. Excellent. So now move your mic to mute and turn off your camera. So that's going to be hovering on your bottom left. So close the camera and click on the mute.
Wait a minute.
Thank you. Excellent work. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for being here today. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Juliana Reed. She is an accomplished healthcare executive, having spent the last 40 years working in the bone in the U.S. in both the U.S. healthcare system, in clinical realms, as well as a hospital administrator, and in global pharmaceutical and medical device industries, in corporate and government affairs executive roles. Ms. Reed has over 20 years of global experience in pharmaceutical and medical device regulatory pathways, reimbursement, and government policy. She has direct experience in the US, Canada, and Europe. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Reed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Woods, and thank you all for inviting me. This is very, very generous of you, and I appreciate it. So it's always funny and kind of embarrassing to hear someone read your bio. So, but I think one thing I do for work, the other thing I do best is I hope be a good mom and things like that. So again, thank you all for inviting me. I am Julie Reed. I'm the Executive Director of the Biosimilars Forum. The Forum is the trade association that represents the U.S. biosimilar industry. We are celebrating, so just to go back, some of our members are the pharmaceutical companies that have developed, not only in the US, but around the world, the greatest number of biosimilars. They have developed, today the FDA has approved 74 biosimilars in the US. Around the globe, there's even more. Our members have launched biosimilars for over the past 10 years across 80 countries. And again, we have the largest number of biosimilars either in development at the FDA or on the market. Can I ask real quickly, has maybe a quick show of hands if you guys have that capability? Does anyone know what a biosimilar is before I go too far? Because I'll always be happy to start there. Okay, I see some chats, but I'm gonna go through. Great, thanks everybody for saying yes. That's very helpful, and a good thing to know. Great, I'll talk a little bit about that. The Biosimilar Forum is celebrating its 10th anniversary. We started, and I'll open up my slides. We started 10 years ago, 5 years after. Actually, a few years after the actual law was passed that gave the FDA the authority to authorize biosimilars. And I'm going to make it very simple. A biosimilar is basically a generic version of a biologic medicine. We don't call ourselves generics because of we are made from a much more rigid science, much more significant scientific process, but also we're biologics. We're not small molecules. And the difference is, and we'll talk about this, the difference is between aspirin and an injectable drug that could be treating osteoporosis, could be treating cancer, could be treating rheumatoid arthritis. It's a very different type of medicine. It's a biologic versus a chemically created medicine. So it's much more complex. And so we wanted to be able, when we started to work on the law, it's been 15 years since the law was passed, we knew we did not want to call these products generics because they are so complex and so scientifically rigorous. I'm going to share some slides, and you guys, I will look for hands up as we go through. Please don't be shy. Ask a lot of questions. Ask whatever you want. If I don't know the answer, I will find the answer for you, and don't be shy, okay? So, all right. Let's see if I can do this where you guys can see the full slide deck, okay? I'm never sure if I'm gonna get this done correctly. All right, it's not taking it. Just so you know, my computer last week totally malfunctioned and I lost everything. So I'm on a new temporary computer, but I apologize for.
Juliana, it should go to full screen if you click on the icon to the right of the book, the slide. It'll say slideshow. Is that not?
Yeah, it usually does, but unfortunately it's not doing that for me. So
Julie, this is Scott. Would it be helpful if I shared the slides?
I'm so glad you're here. Yes, please.
Of course. I'll go back on mute and do that right now.
You're the best. Sorry, everybody. Scott is my better half who actually gets me through things like this. So thank you, Scott. So again, just history-wise, 15 years since Congress passed thanks, Scott, passed the law that created the biosimilar industry. 10 years since the first biosimilar was launched in the United States. And that is Zarzio. It's a chemotherapy drug, an adjunct for chemotherapy. So one of the key things is to talk about the FDA, and happy to answer any questions, but the FDA, again, created the biosimilar industry and the significant amount of regulatory oversight and regulations that we follow as an FDA-approved drug, that we have to meet extremely high standards for quality, safety, efficacy. We do the development time for a biosimilar takes 7 to 9 years. It's very complicated. And we do hundreds of analytical and clinical tests to show that a biosimilar is the same and has the same clinical outcomes and efficacy as the brand. Okay, and we're required by law to compare ourselves to US brand drugs. And so I think it's very important. I want you all to feel that anything that takes 7 to 9 years and hundreds of different tests and is regulated by the FDA is meeting the highest standard in the United States to show that they're safe and everything else. So I want you to feel, as you guys will start to see biosimilars in your offered by your physicians and your other caregivers, please have a lot of confidence in the FDA's review and standards of these products. That is our requirement, and we meet those requirements, that you're going to get basically the same product, maybe a different name. So again, the key pieces about a biosimilar cannot have a difference in safety and efficacy. They are biologics, so as I mentioned, they're created by living cells and amino acids. Usually an injection or an infusion, especially in the chemo space. They've been in Europe since 2006, and we started to have the law being passed in 2009 and the first biosimilar introduced in 2015. So like I said, cancer, eye conditions, arthritis and now osteoporosis biosimilars are coming to the market. And I think I want you to be very excited about that. And I'll talk about what you will see as far as the discounts you'll see when these become so yes, in the question there, and I know there's a lot of questions, Kaiser is one of the early adopters of biosimilars, and they have converted 99% of all of their biologic medicines across the Kaiser system to biosimilars as soon as they come out. So Kaiser is, again, one of our champions. So, thanks. So again, I think I've gone through the history. Why are they so great and why develop them? Okay, I'm going to come back to, let me go through the slides real quick, everyone, and I will tell you why they're so great and why I was on the ground in Washington to get this law passed, because I'm very passionate about it. So again, 15 years ago, the law was passed. It took quite a bit of work. Because as what happened when the generic industry first started, the brand drug industry did not want to see competition. They did not want to see biosimilars. But Congress was very adamant about we need competition in this space. So yes, it is about you guys saving money. Biosimilars, again, they're FDA approved. They're safe, they're effective, they meet very, very rigorous and high standards. Go ahead, Scott. And then again, as I talked about, the difference between a small molecule, versus a large biologic molecule is the complexity, the size. One is chemically based, so if you think about your organic chem or your chemistry classes versus one is living cells and amino acids and 3D type analytics and things like that. So very complex. If you compare a biosimilar development timeline where I said it was 7 to 9 years, a small molecule generic you can develop like aspirin or ibuprofen or any of those, they only take about 1.5 years to develop. The cost to develop a generic pill is about $3 million. The cost to develop a biosimilar is anywhere between $200 and $300 million. And again, the 7 to 9 years. That gives you a sense of the complexity. Yes, it's a bike compared to a plane. They're just totally different from small molecules, but we'll talk about that some more. So go ahead, please. Again, I've talked enough. I hope biosimilars are not small molecule generics. Go ahead, Scott. And again, what is really important and exciting about biosimilars is one, we'll talk about the incredible discounts and cost reductions and the incredible savings. And one of the reasons I'm here is when we as a forum, as an industry, have a new patient group and new physicians who have not experienced biosimilars, we offer to offer education and be a resource. I'll be honest with you, usually the FDA is with us for all of these, but recently, if you've seen the news, there's been a lot of restructuring over at the FDA, and unfortunately, given the restructures and the changes, they're not in a place at this time to do education because they're just trying to stay above water and get the reviews done. They are always happy to be here. We usually bring them, and we hope to at any time bring them back for you guys too, if they can come. So go ahead, Scott, please. Thank you. So I think one of the key things I've talked about is the complexity of biologic drugs. One of the other key things is this country and your employers and all of you, if you're getting a biologic drugs that represent almost 50% of all the drug spending in this country. So that's really key, and they're only 3% of the prescriptions. So again, taking a look at your 80-20 rule or anything like that, 3% of the prescriptions are represented by biologics, and they are the highest cost drug that you can receive. So go ahead, please. What we've seen when we've brought in, and this is example of Remicade and also Neulasta. Neulasta is a cancer treatment, and Remicade is, as you know, probably it's an anti-inflammatory drug. It's an immunology drug, so it's used for Crohn's and arthritis and that. When the biosimilar is launched, prices go down. It's the competition, and we have seen that over the last 10 years. Go ahead. And then I think, again, as you know, it's very important, very rigorous at the FDA, that are requirements. And again, there we go. Here's, go ahead to the next one. Here's the most, what I think is most important is, as many of you have seen over time, the price of a drug without competition goes up. We've seen that with Humira, which is Humira has been the largest or the biggest selling drug. It's a biologic in this country for decades. 2 years ago, the biosimilars launched 10 Humira biosimilars in the US. Our biosimilars are being offered today at an 85% discount from Humira. So just at launch, think about that, at an 85% discount. If you or anyone in your family are on Humira or have ever been, and it's an injectable, the cost went from $84,000 a year to $1,600 a year. So this is just looking, the cost went down 85%, but the copay, what you guys would pay out of pocket if you have that type of plan, your copay went from $16,000 a year to $2,500 a year. This is probably one of the most exciting things about biosimilars, is that they are FDA approved, they're safe, and they are discounted. The whole reason that we're in this industry is to bring cost savings to all of you and to everyone. So that's what that is what our mission is as an industry, and that's why we're here. So thank you. I'm going to open up to questions now. I hope this was helpful. I'm going to open up the chat, and you guys just give me a shout, okay? So there. Prolia, yes, let's see. This is the new. I'm going to start on top.
Where's the end?
Prolia is definitely coming out soon as an approved biosimilar. So any of you who are currently on Prolia, you should look forward to the launch and the FDA approval, and be excited that you're going to get a product that is the same as the reference, but hopefully it should be at a pretty good discount for you. And especially now, I think that's really important. Do we get federal funding? Absolutely not. We are not for profit. So we fund ourselves, and we represent the industry in Washington and around the country. So no, we are a not-for-profit trade association, and probably one of, so yes, we do not get any federal funding. So.
There was a question about whether these biosimilars are made in the US or overseas.
So like they're both. like most of the pharmaceutical industry, there's, and especially with complex molecules, the companies are international. So some of the companies, if you look at, and give you an example, what's in the news every day today is the weight loss products. Majority of the weight loss products are out of Denmark. Some are out of Lilly here in the US, and it's the same for our industry. Some biosimilars are made in the US, some outside of the US in Europe, because these are international companies. But I think what's really, really key is not where they're made. It is that regardless of where they're made, they have to be FDA approved. So the FDA goes to any manufacturing plant or to any company's, research areas, and the FDA on site in person does all the reviews. So, and that is true across the whole pharmaceutical industry, is that the FDA is there on site to oversee everything and review it and approve it. So.
And along those lines, there's a question, do biosimilars have to do the same type and phases of clinical trials?
Actually, no, and they shouldn't. And I think that's really important when, as I said, the time frame. So one of the key things as a FDA and as a scientist, biosimilars undergo clinical tests that are focused on comparative analytics. And I'll explain those a bit, versus repeating clinical efficacy trials that a brand new drug has to undergo. And let me explain that. You don't ethically want to repeat an efficacy study, and I'm sure I'm getting in the weeds. When a brand drug is doing the research to develop a drug that has never been used in the human body, they are looking to make sure it is safe and efficacious in doing the clinical test. They prove that, okay? And that is when the FDA approves it. The biosimilar has to compare itself, okay, in development to that brand drug that has already proven safety and efficacy. So we don't put patients through the efficacy trials because it's already been proved and it would be unethical. What we have to do is, though, do 7 to 9 years of what is called comparative analytics. And it looks at so you're not being experimented on as a placebo type thing versus the drug. What we're looking at in your blood systems in doing these clinical analytical studies is measuring your blood and your systems of you taking a biosimilar, okay, versus the reference or the US brand. And so we're doing 7 to 9 years of these studies that are scientifically different. And they're absolutely not, they are scientifically different. They are new science. They show that the biosimilar has the same safety, efficacy, and clinical outcomes as the reference, but it's a different science and a newer science. And I hope that makes sense. We're not comparing you or putting somebody on no drug or a fake drug. We're comparing our product to the drug you are getting and making sure it has the same safety, efficacy, and clinical outcome. And I'll stop there to see if there's questions. But
so if I could just rephrase what you're
Yeah.
saying and make sure we're understanding it correctly. So for Denosumab, Prolia, when biosimilars are being developed, they first have to show that. So Prolia is a monoclonal antibody against rank-ligand. So we have to show that the biosimilar antibody has the same exact structure as the brand drug. And those are hard to make because, as you said, they have to be made by cells.
Yeah.
And then second of all, we have to do a study comparing the brand Prolia to the biosimilar and show that the effects on, say, bone density are the same.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and that's, I hope that wasn't too weedy, but it's just a different scientific approach. But it is absolutely, there's no cutting corners. There's no, making it easy or, it is really time consuming. And the analytics are in the hundreds of analytical tests, not hundreds of people, it's thousands, but hundreds of different analytical tests, looking at, like you said, Dr. Woods, looking at the structure, looking at, is every amino acid effective, all those different things. So I just want you all to feel confident that it's an incredibly rigorous process. The FDA, so we've had biosimilars on the market for the last 10 years in the FDA, approved by the FDA and in the US. The FDA did a retrospective study last year. They looked at every single biosimilar prescribed in the US and every biosimilar's history. And they have found, looking at every one of those biosimilars, there has been absolutely no safety issues. There's been no safety issues. Everyone has been safe. There's limited adverse events that are normal, but with any drug, because you might respond like to get hives or a rash or anything like that, but no safety issues. And that is actually a global finding as well. So there's been no safety issues across the globe with biosimilars. So.
Right. And I just want to take a moment to explain, because I think it may be a little bit confusing, that let's talk about our osteoporosis medications and which ones are biologics and which ones are not. So bisphosphonates like alendronate, Fosamax, and Reclast, which is an infusion, those are not biologics. Denosumab Prolia is a biologic. Evenity is another antibody. That one is considered a biologic. The other one that's interesting, though, that we have, teriparatide and abaloparatide, which are peptides, and there is a generic for teriparatide. So that's a little bit confusing because it's also a protein, but for some reason that one is considered a generic. Any comments on why or how that decision is made?
It all depends on what pathway you have to take for the product at the FDA. So if the brand drug was originally approved as a small molecule, which and I could ask, if you would take the small molecule pathway to approve either the generic. For the biosimilars, you take the biologic or the biologic approval pathway. So it's two different groups or divisions at the FDA.
Yeah. So Evenity is still on patent. So where there's no I saw someone wrote Evenity in the chat, that there's no biosimilar available at this time. So it will only be Prolia.
Yeah.
Okay. Melissa Vaughn has a question. I don't know, Melissa, if you want to unmute and ask your question. If you're able to.
Yeah, I'm
Question.
sorry. Yeah, so there's such a value in biosimilars. And I love the cost savings and everything that can happen. But it seems in the US, we just can't seem to get it right. And we have this reimbursement formula that it's not just the competition, it's how it's reimbursed, and it just drives it down in the US. But you leave the US and biosims are thriving for years and years and years. And that's so frustrating. Are they going to change any of the reimbursement formula or do anything to make them do what they're supposed to do in the US?
Melissa, you bring music to my ears, and we have been trying as an industry to do that since the beginning. And we're not going to give up. We've had, if you can imagine, the biologic industry or marketplace in the US is the biggest. Okay. So if you're a brand drug company, this is your biggest market. And so you bring biosimilars. I cannot tell you how many years it took us just to get the law passed to bring biosimilars to the US market, and how strong the opposition is. And that opposition has continued since we started launching, since before we launched the first biosimilar. There's been groups out there that have created an incredible amount of misinformation about safety. They would go to physicians' office, conferences, meet with groups like you saying these are not safe. The reimbursement barriers you see now are also been put in place as obstacles for to prevent biosimilars from getting market access. But one of the reasons the industry has the Biosimilars Forum in a trade association is to represent them in Washington, in the states, to try to change those things. And we're not giving up. And it's been hard, but I think someone asked what's so great about biosimilars. These are mission-focused companies that want to bring cost savings, and they believe in that. And I think that's really incredible when you have, companies that believe, they do want to survive, they need to survive, but they believe in what this is all about. And they're not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. So yeah, Melissa, we're trying. The PBMs have blocked biosimilar access. I talked about that Humira, us launching 10 Humira biosimilars 2 years ago. The PBMs have blocked patients getting access to Humira because they preferred rebates, and they preferred the brand drug because Humira, the Humira AbbVie would give the PBMs a rebate to stay on the formulary in a preferred way. But if you look at it, that meant none of you were getting access to a biosimilar that was 85% discounted, because the PBMs wanted the higher cost, higher rebated product. We've been fighting that in Congress now for a number of years, and hopefully that law will pass. But we're constantly working on these issues. I hope that helped.
Yeah. Nina was asking about why a doctor would recommend reclassed over a biologic. I think, or what over a biosimilar. This is generally not affecting physicians' recommendations of which treatment to choose for you, but if they choose a certain treatment, it may affect the cost of that treatment because there's other options besides the brand product.
Oh, I'm the one to ask the question, Nina's husband.
Okay, yeah.
A related question is on shots versus using it like a reclass or infusion. Can you get this product on a yearly basis as an infusion, or does it have to be injected?
So go ahead, Dr. Wood.
Denosumab Prolia, which is the one that's going to have a biosimilar option, which in the treatment of osteoporosis, that's a subcutaneous injection that's given twice a year, every 6 months.
Well, that's not bad. Okay, I was thinking every month.
No.
And then the other question is, I'm retired military and I have TRICARE for life. When I called them about injections, we gave them one particular name and they said, we don't carry that at all. And so that part of the insurance might be null and void as opposed to Medicare, which may pay for this. Does Medicare pay for this?
I don't know about TRICARE versus Medicare.
Well, the question is, does Medicare pay for it? That's the question.
I can answer usually if it's on TRICARE. Now, TRICARE may have a different formulary, but Medicare usually pays for it as well.
Well, that's fine. If they pay for it and it's a maybe 20% residual for me, that's fine.
Yeah. Thank you for your service, sir. It's great to hear you're retired military, and we appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Eleanor asked, how many companies will formulate the Prolia biosimilar?
I don't know the answer to that, and I will get back to you. I apologize. I don't know. I should know. So let me get back to you on that.
Someone asked, are only injection drugs have a biosimilar version? Are there any oral biosimilars?
No, there's no oral biosimilars yet, and I don't know if there will be. I don't think so because of the biologic nature of the drug. So
That was a question or someone that unmuted by accident. Marlene asked, will the current administration's imposing tariffs affect the ability for the US to get biosimilars that are developed abroad?
you know, I had a meeting with the administration this morning about that subject, so I'm happy to tell you what we told them, and you know, one of the key things about tariffs for a couple reasons, for an industry that just started and an industry that believes in offering lower cost products, adding a tariff to a low cost product is going to require us to raise the price. And I think everyone knows that because these products, if we're offering 85% discounts on them, which is something we feel is what we should be doing and what we want to do. We will, you know, that is extreme, that is our mission. And so we talked to the administration this morning about the impact a tariff could have. And we are, you know, the forum is pleased. President Trump put out one of his executive orders a couple weeks ago in which he called for doing more for biosimilars. He is well aware of the Humira situation and what needs to happen. He's also well aware that in his group, because we worked with the first Trump administration, we work with everyone in Washington. We are not a political group. We're a biosimilar group. So whoever's there, we'll work with them. And he put out an executive order a couple of weeks ago saying he needs to do, and his administration needs to do more for biosimilars. He is aware that we expect if we made biosimilars for every brand product, the country could have $186 billion in savings over the next few years. That's a lot of money to save that we could put back into other healthcare issues and things for all of you and for everyone. So we're meeting, you know, the tariffs, we're educating the administration. We have more meetings tomorrow. We've had meetings all along and say this is how a tariff could impact a biosimilar, and it could impact the price at the end of the day. And really, that's not what I think this president wants. So I hope I answered your question. So.
There is a question about why these products are called biosimilars and not bioidenticals.
Well, that was a debate of what to call them for a couple of years when we were trying to figure out. And the FDA, so the one things about this is because these are made with living cells, all right? So you cannot have, and this was an FDA perspective as to why they came up with the biosimilar name. And it had to do with how the FDA evaluates products. Going back to earlier, we talked about small molecules, right? Which is basically organic chem. You've got your carbons to your carbons to whatever other things that are connected in those, you know, models and everything else to make up a small molecule drug. Because a biologic drug is a living cell made up of amino acids, every one of us has, or every hamster, because we use hamster cells, every one of us has a variation in minuscule amino acid sequences. And that's true for every living thing. So the FDA felt strongly that we couldn't call it a bioidentical because they scientifically we all could see some type of variation in one of hundreds of amino acids that makes up the biologic drug. So that's why we have biosimilar. It has to do with the stringent thinking of the scientist at the FDA. So.
We have a couple questions about asking about, does big pharma get in your way? Are they lobbying to stop biosimilars? You sort of addressed this already, but any additional comments beyond what we've currently discussed?
Well, you know what? I think this is important. Some of the largest pharma companies, one of them being Pfizer, is a member of the Biosimilars Association and has been developing biosimilars. They stand behind biosimilars because that they believe has been part of their belief since they started, is that when patents expire, there should be competition. And so they felt, and they do, I don't know if you all knew this, but Pfizer has been one of the largest generic drug companies. And again, because they believe that when patents expire, and patents are important to everyone, but there should be competition. So some of big pharma who have large brand biologic portfolios have been fighting us tooth and nail from the beginning. I'll just be very transparent with you on that. But as I said, we've had support, one, to get the law passed because Congress wants competition. The past 15 years of different administrations have all supported biosimilars, but because we're a new industry, we do not have the funding that we can use, that people often use in Washington to oppose things. So, but we're not giving up, so we keep going. So.
I'm scanning the chat. Some of these questions have sort of been answered already. There is a question from Barbara about, would someone using a biosimilar version of Prolia inject themselves, or will this still be administered in an infusion center or a physician's office?
I'm going to let you answer that.
I believe it will be the same administration, so in a healthcare facility.
Yeah.
And would Medicare cover it? I believe, Julie, you said that's yes, right? Question from Barbara, if some of the osteoporosis drugs end up coming out as generics rather than biosimilars, are there any problems going with generics? So generics apply to small molecules. There's no problem using them.
Yep.
Biosimilars apply to biologics, and again, no problem using them with the rigorous testing that is conducted.
Correct. Yep. There's a question I see, Dr. Woods, what is a PBM? And I'm sorry, that's a pharmacy benefit manager. So if any of you have like CVS or Express Scripts or Optum, that is a pharmacy benefit manager that contracts either with your employer or with Medicare or with your insurance company, and they manage your pharmacy benefits. So they manage the access and what goes on formulary that you get to have access to.
Excuse me. I did want to know, is there going to be a biosimilar for Repatha?
I believe that there is, but I want to get back to you on that one as well, Linda, because I could give you a better perspective of the patent expirations and timing.
Okay, that's fine. Also, can you explain what exactly would be different about a biosimilar? Something has to be different, correct, in comparison to the original drug?
Nope. We have to be the same as the original drug, and we have to have the same safety, efficacy, and clinical outcomes. It's just the name is confusing, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is, like I said, that has to do with FDA thinking and versus how all of us outside the FDA may be thinking of how to name something, but small milestone to get past.
So it's not like supposedly generics have something that's a little bit different?
No, generics have to be as this is, as I mentioned, generics, because there were chemical entities, they can be exact. Okay, they can be mirror images of aspirin is aspirin. Every aspirin is the same exact chemical entity. The biosimilar, and why it's not called a biogeneric, is just because of the science, that it's biologic, it's made by living cells, and everything that's a biologic, including us, has amino acids and things like that make up our living cells. And Dr. Woods is good. I hope you correct me, because I haven't taken any of my organic chem or my sciences and all those things for quite a long time. But so just because it's a biologic entity, there might be a small variance in one of thousands and hundreds of amino acids, and that's all the only difference. But the difference, that small amino acid difference, like as I said, it does not impact and cannot impact any of the safety, efficacy, or the clinical pieces of what you guys would get, why you're getting treated or the treatment. So I hope that helps, but the difference is in a slight structure thing versus the clinical outcomes and benefits.
Okay, because I was curious, because sometimes people taking medicine can't do the generic product. There's something, their response
Yeah.
is different.
Yeah, and that I think has to do more, and again, I haven't done generics for a while, but that has to do, I think everybody tolerates different things, but they have to be clinically identical. But I know from a generic,
There might be a difference in the excipient or something like
that's right. That's the word I was looking for. That's exact. Thanks, Dr. Woods.
someone might have an allergy to or something.
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Woods.
Sure. Barb has her hand up.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm calling because I was on Evenity for 12 months, and then on the 13th month, I had reclassed and had an extremely severe allergic reaction to reclassed. So I'm wondering, other than Prolia, what might be some alternatives?
Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, Barb, but in this forum, we can't give individual medical recommendations outside of the context of a visit with your provider. So I would advise you to, follow up with your provider and discuss your options.
So the Prolia, that's once every 6 months, and for a lifetime, you can't ever get off of it?
Not necessarily true, but getting off of it you can't stop it cold turkey. So you would need to go on to something else afterwards. So yeah, I think this would be best discussed with your healthcare provider.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Jessica, would you like to unmute and explain? This is what I was thinking about, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I'm glad you can speak to the minor differences in the glycosylation patterns that might be different.
Sure, absolutely. So I work for a biosimilar manufacturer, Sandoz, and for a biosimilar to be designated as a biosimilar, the amino acid sequence has to be 100% identical, but there can be other minor nuances to the molecule that don't affect safety, efficacy, or immunogenicity that could differ, but they have to fall within very tight goalposts. and still are very highly regulated by the FDA. So the amino acid sequence is 100% identical, but there could be a glycosylation pattern. You're right about an excipient it may be differing, etc. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah. So that would be like a glucose added to the protein. You know, there could be little subtle differences there, but it has to be very minor and not affecting the efficacy or safety, as Jessica said. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Jessica. It's always good to bring the experts, so I appreciate it. I'm not the scientist, so thanks, Jessica. That's great.
Liz has her hand up.
Yeah, my question is, I mean, it's kind of related to the earlier question about Prolia. I understand if you take Prolia for a number of years, you know, sometimes they want you to stop it. Like right now, I think it's 10 years. And then if you stop, it's usually recommended to take the biphosphonates. I too had an allergic reaction to biphosphonates. And then evidently you can't take the, you know, like the Forteo and the Avinity, that helps to increase your degradation, you know, in your bone. Is there anything in the pipeline being developed, any new things for osteoporosis, you know, that maybe aren't on the market yet?
There is one new drug in the pipeline. It is pretty early in the pipeline, so I don't think we're close to having another option that's FDA approved, but it's a monoclonal antibody that inhibits both sclerostin and something called DKK1, so it's kind of similar to Evenity, but has some different properties, and in the phase 1 studies, it's looking very effective, but yeah, very early on, so not close to getting approved. So for people who've been on Prolia I mean, there's no lifetime limit in my opinion on how long you can stay on Prolia. The clinical trial went for 10 years. So for that reason, many or sometimes providers will recommend getting off of it after 10 years because we don't have data for beyond that. And usually the recommendation is to go at least temporarily onto a bisphosphonate. But if someone can't take a bisphosphonate, there are some other options, maybe involving overlapping treatment. So I think these are a little bit more complicated and nuanced than we can discuss in this format. So I have to refer you to your healthcare provider for that.
Okay.
Advice.
Well, thank you for answering my question.
Sure. Any other questions? We're almost at the end of our hour. All right, well, if there are no questions, then thank you so much, Julie, for this very informative presentation. And thank you all for being with us today. We will get this recording posted on Trumba and on our YouTube site.
Thanks for having me, everyone.
Gina, have you stopped the recording?